Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another how we play the game, not a why. I think we've kind of beat that into the ground. I think we all know why we play the game, but you know the old adage, teach a man to fish. Well, imagine if instead of just teaching the man to fish, you gave him a book on how to fish. Not only do you teach him how to fish, or could you teach him how to fish, but you could teach his whole family for generations to come. They could copy that book and produce that book and sell that book and teach an entire nation to fish. One simple book could be the most powerful non-magical, maybe even item in any of your fantasy role-playing games. Heck, even in a lot of other genres, one book could be the most important thing in the entire campaign. To search for the book, the recovery of the book, the destruction of a book, which I don't, recommend unless it's Death in Space. That book needs to be scoured from the earth permanently, along with a couple other books I could mention, but I'm not going to get into that and start up a whole hullabaloo on that. But I was thinking about it today when I was going through. Did I file it away already? No, I was going through this game, looking for the rules in it, because it actually has some rules in here. Probably the best thing in this book, to be honest. It's a really complicated mess. But it has rules on acquiring just good old-fashioned books on how to do things. And while that's fantastic, having books that teach you skills, why not? I mean, it should have been from day one in somewhere, in the Dungeon Master's Guide or something. Should have been a little section on what happens if you read a book. But, in the original DMG, they didn't really want to go into skills. And that would be the first thing that, you'd want to cover. Pardon the pun, I guess. But I digress. If you introduce books into your, let's just call it your D&D game for now, and you allow players to acquire them, mind you, the Middle Ages were a rough time for books. They were often kept from the masses on purpose, and if you want a world full of morons, I suggest you continue that trope. But if you want a world that will someday be something different and unique and not a stereotype copy or carbon copy of every other fantasy world, try introducing books and see what happens to your world as people educate themselves and gravitate toward learning instead of the caste system, and allowing people to become better people, more educated, more enlightened, more capable of doing more things. And for your basic skills, I've got a little formula that I want to go into. But if you're not into that and you want to keep your people and your players and your world stuck in time, in that bottle forever, the Middle Ages, because reasons, that's fine. I've done it. We've all done it. But as I get older, I want something different. But there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm going to go over real quick that you may not have thought of, or maybe you have, but you just don't use them enough. Obviously, books can contain legends and lore and secrets and hidden maps. Not just like drawn out maps, but if you read the book, there might be a tale of someone buried with that sword or that ring or whatever. They were buried under the tallest tree on the tallest hill of a certain island, and now the players have a map. If they go to that island, they find that tallest hill, they find the tallest tree, and start maybe detecting magic or digging around, they might find the buried body with the aforementioned item or items that person had and is no longer using, and you guys need, and bada boom, bada bing, you've got an adventure, you've got a reward at the end, and a key or two that will unlock the next part of the journey. Uh, Another thing that I like to do on occasion when it's just one book, and people are wondering why it was so important. Uh, I like to add one or more of the following things depending on the level of the adventure and the campaign and where it is. These range from mundane, non-magical tricks and quirks to full on, as I'll get to them going down one. Hidden pages, maybe you've got a page that's somehow sort of stuck together, like with wax or something, and the common man might not notice that there's a hidden page, or hidden pages in the cover. If you peel back the cover, there may be more writing. Invisible ink. There could be pages that have been written on with invisible ink, and if you put them under the lamp or a heat source, it will reveal the lemon juice or whatever other invisible form they use. There's other kinds of invisible ink. It's not always lemon juice. There could be codes and ciphers. Sometimes I'll put like a little mark on each page, and that could literally be like part of a cipher or a code. Or if it's like, say it's just a letter and you add up the letters, you end up with words, and then you end up with sentences, especially if you like skip a page. That means there's a space, and that's the end of the word, etc. Just hide it just somewhere, anywhere on the page, or it could be in the same spot, like near the binding, and if you look all the way, oh, there's a little hidden little letter, F. I wonder what that is. Most players wouldn't notice that, but a very, very, very careful examination might reveal something like that. You could also have hidden items sewn into the binding, into the spine. It could be a strip of cloth, it could be a piece of metal, it could be a key, it could be any number of things that have been hidden into the actual binding, or even in the cover. If you're careful, you could peel back the inside cover, revealing that there's a small space that could hide like a folded up map, or again a key, or something like that. Maybe even a very small thin amulet of some sort that's been hidden carefully. Kind of like how you can cut out pages in a book to make a book safe. Well, you could do the same thing, but just in the cover, and hide just the amulet. The bookmark itself could have clues on it. It's just a ribbon, that are often sewn into books, and I love books that have that. Any book in the current era that is produced with those, you've got my attention. I know what books are for and how important it is to be able to not lose your place and have something built in. Love it. Then there's using magic to enchant the book, but it's not a spell book. And then the players are like, well, what is it? There are various things that I like to hide magically. Invisible ink, again, is another one. Invisible pages. You don't even know that the page is there because it's at the end of the book, and you've gotten to the end of the book, and then there's like the blank page, and you look and you see, okay, there's nothing there. Well, believe it or not, there were 2 invisible pages at the back of the book. Why not? With more clues or information, things like that. I've even had books with a couple of my more famous magic books. One was a book of holding, and I'm not going to say how or where, but it had the ability to hold items like a book safe, if you will. I've also had books that the images that were in the book, the pages, if you knew the right incantation, you could teleport or walk into that picture. Not just the old Gumby, you could walk into any book, but I had a book of treasure maps, and each plate in the book was a portal to a place, and if you went through the the area that's depicted therein, you would find a fabulous, and I do mean Monty Hall, obscene amount of treasure in in that land. Now getting back home, that's an entirely different kettle of fish, as they say. So if you ever find something like that in a game of mine, be very careful when you walk in, because if you don't have a way out, you could be stuck in a brand new world that may have absolutely no use for the treasure you just found. Now, back to the beginning of the skills. I suggest 3 types of books: a single volume, a 1 through 3, or a 1 through 5, depending on your skill system. These could be used for any game that has a skill system. A volume 1 could give you just a flat bonus. It could be a brand new ability or a skill or a power, so to speak, depending on how your books or how your game rules run. A mutant ability or a psychic power or something weird. If maybe it teaches you telepathy or something, or it just gives you the underwater basket weaving skill, something that's not in your game but it's in this book. Again, non-magical. The 1 to 3s, depending on the skill system, could just give you like a +1, like in Traveler. I wouldn't go more than level 3. Gives you a +1, a 2, or a 3 if you read the book. But maybe having a limit that it won't get you to 4 or 5 in Traveler, or in other games, it'll give you maybe +1 on a proficiency check, or maybe in a percentile-based game, it might give you +5% for each volume that you read, accumulating, maybe going up to +25 because you read the definitive on underwater basket weaving, and now you've got a mighty +25 on that skill. You could use it in Palladium, things like that. I've done it with because why not? Eventually the players are going to max out anyways, and now in some of those games it's really just a shortcut versus a brand new thing. But sometimes being really good at it early on can save the party's bacon. Now for the most part, this it seems like it's mostly like a D&D based thing. Maybe you could use it in like Deadlands or games like that, Western, where education is not a big deal. But think about even in your sci-fi games, or your Traveler, your Star Frontiers, where it's the collected works of a research scientist who's working on a new technological science, a whole new theory or what have you. This could easily be the definitive and only works on the matter, and said scientist, professor, whatever, he's missing, or he disappeared, or he died, and he left this book to someone, or someone found it, and now the whole galaxy's racing to learn some new aspect of quantum physics, wormholes or something like that. And you could break in a new technology or even like I said before, psionics. Maybe this school, this particular school on this faraway planet has this library, and each of these books are on a new psychic talent, or the ones that are already in the book, but now players can try and read it and learn from it. And speaking of trying to learn from it, read from it, I suggest that it take no more than 1 minute per page of study. And obviously you can't cram it all into one day and try to read it in 3 days and be done with it. That's not going to work. You're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to start just missing things because you're burning out. After reading for more than a couple of hours, you may not be absorbing anything. It's up to you on how much you want to limit their ability to read per day. If they've got the week off, okay, you can study it 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and eventually bang that book out. I would range the books between 250 and 500 pages. And what did I say here? If the reader is slow or unfamiliar, or the text itself is cryptic, maybe it's all poetry or something like that. Maybe breaking it down to 2 or 3 minutes per page, depending on how long you want it to take. But just rest assured, if you're going to do anything like this, the players are going to do whatever you set. They will do it. And if you tell them it takes a week per page, you're a horrible DM and you don't know how to read yourself. But if you tell them it's like a couple of minutes, a page, they'll dedicate the time to it, because it will add a whole new depth to your game and your adventures and your downtime with things they can do, and you don't have to worry so much about creating carousing adventures or whatever. Your players, they're all busy reading the books that you've handed out and implementing those new skills and talents and abilities in ways that hopefully won't break your game. But then again, we're dealing with modern players, so who knows, right, folks? That's what I've got for you this morning. I will be back in about 20-30 minutes with the morning breakfast. Let me know, guys, if you think I should start the show a little bit later, because we're having, normally I have people show up, but sometimes it seems like they don't show up until later. If you guys, want to show up, but it's too early, let me know, and I can scooch it back a little, give me a little bit more time in the morning, but no more than an hour later, because then it kind of screws up the schedule that I've actually started implementing in my own life and getting more things done. But that's what I've got for you this morning, guys. I love you. I will see you guys shortly, and until then, happy trails.